Okay, I shared out earlier this morning this particular post. It's a post by Ross Johnson. He's a designer and agency owner out of Ann Arbor, and I follow him. If you don't, you should follow him. He's a super smart guy. And he did this post about his concept of using what he calls block frames. And it's simply as a portion of the web design process. He's taking out before he goes into, and I'm not sure exactly the sequence, but probably before he goes into wireframes or as he's doing wireframes, he's taking a moment to really block out potentially what will be on any given page and think through the user experience and specifically the personas and the use cases that a user might encounter with the web page. And I thought that was super smart. We've actually been doing something similar, but a little less insightful probably than this. Over the last several months, we've introduced a step called content blocks. And we did this because we found it was becoming increasingly important with the use of all kinds of different types of content, not just text, but video and images, that we really needed to, as we were working through the wireframes, we really needed to break down and understand the types of content that are essential to the user experience, but also the type of content that potentially the user of the website, the actual company themselves, would want to or need to put into any given page or potentially into a particular block or module. So we've done something similar to this. I thought it was really interesting to layer in the personas and the use cases, and so we're going to adapt our process because we learn from smart people. But in sharing this, let me go back here. In sharing this, I got some questions, and so I thought I would try something a little bit different and try to share a video so we could kind of walk through those questions and those concepts. So let me go to that question so you can kind of see what the question is. And I'm going to probably do more of these. I'm going to actually answer back in video whenever I can. I think it's just something to test and try. Unfortunately, LinkedIn doesn't give you the ability to actually embed a video response, which hopefully they'll come around and do that. I noticed some people doing that on Twitter, so that's what gave me the idea, and then I found I couldn't do it in LinkedIn, so I'm doing it with Loom. But anyway, this is a great question, and so Mike Carroll, head of growth at Nutshell, had asked about what do you do if you do this process? What do you do with it once you launch it and potentially watch users work through it and potentially use it incorrectly or not the way you expected it? What do you do with that? And then potentially, are you leaving out portions of your audience? So I think, Mike, there are all kinds of layers to this that we should be talking about. My concept of micro content and how important it is to sort of have this atomic content within individual pages and kind of at the block level potentially, which I think this starts to capture. The reason that I think this is really important to start doing in your design and web development process is because particularly if you're a company like Nutshell that's always constantly doing conversion rate testing and really doing that A/B testing and figuring out how users are using the website and then adjusting in order to get the maximum sort of throughput, performance, the best experience for your users out of that process. This particular step allows you to create a baseline from which you can actually have a good understanding of how you set up your test, and as you are testing or as you launch the website, understand whether or not the user is actually doing what you expected them to do, right? And so you can see whether or not your design is kind of working from the beginning because you have this nice documented baseline. I think that's critical. It's documented baseline. We used to before design and develop and launch websites just because they kind of looked nice and had a gut feel that it was the right approach, but then we didn't have any sort of documented baseline. We had not thought about how we expected the user to actually interact with the website, and therefore when we started to test, we didn't know if it met expectations or not. So I think that's the first part of that question, is that this is essential because you have a documented baseline from which you can immediately understand if you need to iterate, and then from there you can iterate off of that documentation. To the second part of this is that potentially you won't be able to even satisfy a large portion of the user, or they won't actually be able to get down through the page. I think that's sort of going to be solved as we get smarter and better at actually directing and shaping our traffic into the right places, whether that's a particular landing page or even, there is the concept of anchors on a page. So I think potentially you can actually bring individuals into exactly the right block within a page. Or as we get more and more sort of sophisticated with using atomic content, as it gets dynamically put together, we're actually dynamically putting together the content that's appropriate for that particular individual based on where they came from or whatever that behavior was before they landed on our site. So hopefully that helps. A little longer than I thought, but I don't know. We're going to test something and see how you like a video response. So hope that was valuable, and ask more questions because I'm sure there's more to be asked on this question. It's great concept. Ross did a brilliant job here, and definitely something you should be doing in your design and development process.